chin friend. Today we are going to introduce the Guqin Classics, Pingshaluoyan, while the geese descending on the beach. This is a piece that I like a lot. This is one of the famous Guqin Classics, and it is so popular that since the Southern Song Dynasty, numerous versions have been created on this piece, and there are some 40 different versions. And I personally play 4 different versions. And today we are going to introduce the Pingshaluoyan from琴学叢书, which was a late 19th century, early 20th century Guqin manual compiled by Yang Zongji. And Yang Zongji is the teacher of the famous master Guqin Classics. And so I play is based on Guqin Classics' version, Guqin Classics' score recorded by Wang Bi, and I add some of my own stuff, my own understanding, and so it is different from any current published version, but it's basically based on Guqin Classics' playing from the 琴学叢书, right? So today's introduction is going to focus on the musical form and style, so especially the big structural arrangement of the piece. So this is a real Guqin Classics. It follows the most classical Guqin musical structure. It starts with slow, free speed harmonics, and gradually in the second section, the free rhythm gradually get into the beat, get into the rhythmic melody. And then section 3 to section 5, based on a theme, very beautiful, very melodic, very smooth, and made 3 different variations. And then in the 6th section, the rhythmic melody turned into slow and free rhythm again. And then it ended with the first section, the harmonics introduction. All right, so the structure is very classic musical meaning. So the harmonic introduction is slow, and also the sound are vastly aparted. So very long distance between each sound. So it is landscape of sceneries like a misty river, and then mountain range in the background. So we have the vast landscape, a foggy scene. The sound are more distanced and last long. So you really need to play each note very carefully and leave enough space for the harmonic sound to to ring in the air. So the notes should be vastly apart, just like, in a misty landscape, you don't see a lot of detail. So a whole river looks more like just one white band across. And then the mountains in the background also has no detail. You just see profile and see just one mountain range. So just like the musical note, each one is lasting very long, not associating into a kind of detailed character yet. Just take your time. First 3 songs, here you can rest a little, and then the next is a harmonic, is a harmony, a pure fifth harmony. A. And here you should breathe again, and then it's the beginning of a new sentence. Right? Now the second section starts with a note, long note. So this note is very long. It's a full note. It has a last for 4 beats, and we add a now, right? The now. So adding 3 now, and dividing the 4 beat into rhythmic section. Right? So here, you don't have to follow exact beat. So this should be very soft. So I call it a T instead of P, because the finger, your thumb finger, is not really plucking out. It is kind of scratching the string up and down to give it a very light sound, right? Now T. Right. Like this. Traditionally, if you are using silk string, you don't even need to plug it to T to plug it, because the silk string, you slide on it, it is not as smooth as the metal string. Vibration, create additional vibration. So if you are using silk string, you just do this. So just move, and it kind of your left hand is, when this kind of strong movement would already be able to generate the wave, it's too smooth, it does not generate that strong a percussion, so you add a little strike, but instead of striking straight into the string, you strike mostly up and down, like abrasing it, and create that sound. Right, next. Here, breathe again, don't be too hasty, and then right. Now, next sentence. So again, here you should let the sound last. Here we have an octave harmony. So among this vastly apart notes, there are some densely populated nodes to make contrast. Like in the misty landscape, you spotted something that is brighter, or it is more depicting objectively the beautiful sound, and suddenly human subjectivity intervene, and it's a little sad, maybe because it's so beautiful, and it reminds people the short living of the life, and the everlasting beauty of the nature, etc. Anyway, that whatever you think about, you should make that contrast, right? Here, and then psychological. Now here, the transition from free speed to rhythmic melody is complete. Now the music starts to be rhythmic, right? Next one. Right, so this sentence is totally rhythmic, right? It's more melodic. So in the second section, the transition was made from the free speed to rhythmic, from pure landscape and nature to human psychology and to human emotion. Right? Now the third section, in the section 3, 4, 5 are based on the same theme and making variation. So to me, these sections are depicting the wild geese flying, the wild geese in the sky, and they are flying, and many geese form different formation, like in the V shape, or in one line, and in the Y shape, etc. So making different formation, and they fly up and down, and the melody should be very smooth. There is a characteristic beginning for each section, and I call it the calling theme, because it sounds like someone is calling, and then there's an answer. Each of the three sections, number 3, number 4, number 5, begin with such a motif. So it's like this. Right? So that's the motif. Right? So let me play section 3. right? So this is section 3. It's very smooth, very melodic, mainly we can, in order to make the music interesting and rich in contrast and variation, we can imagine the interchanging between the depiction of the wild geese flying and the human appreciation and the human emotion when looking at the bird flying, right? It might be in awe, like admiring the birds flying so high and so neatly. At the same time, it might be a little bit sad because the wild geese might be flying from your hometown, from which you are far away, and or it might be just flying in the direction, and they are going to pass your hometown, but you cannot be back in your hometown. So you miss your home and you feel, how lucky, the geese can fly, above your hometown and maybe passing by your loved one, your families, etc. So it's that kind of intersection. So the first calling, so repeating. Second one, we use the flash sound. And using the flash sound, it makes contrast between the bright and the softer one, right? Here, the contrast. And then using the flash, also prepared for, imagine, the birds sometimes got farther away, sometimes get closer. So when you start imagine that, you also can play your music with louder and softer sound. So the higher pitch, the birds are flying high, and the lower pitch, the birds are flying lower. And the higher pitch, you play softer, and it's kind of more distance and cannot see very clearly you. And then a louder one is like the bird kind of coming closer, and there are multiple flocks of these wild geese flying in the sky, right? So here is created a very unique sound. It's jumping out that sound. We can introduce the technical part in the next video, but that's a very special technique called a 放和. So here, it's kind of a more psychological, right? So previously, or scenery and the bird flying, and now it's kind of more psychological. So here, it's more kind of a like the human admiring sigh and appreciating, acclaiming, with a little bit kind of melancholy, right? Now here, the contrast is like going back to looking the bird. Okay, so this is the third section, and the fourth section is very similar to the fourth section. Start from the same calling motif and making variations. So I'm going to just explain where I made the variation. So let's start. Right? Finally, here. So it made variation on this da 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 and added more detail first time in the fourth section. And then third time. By the way, this one is, what I added. And then finally make a conclusion. So what is this? This is kind of a, one way to think about it is it's the same bird. Right? It's the same bird. Well, the previous one I used the metaphor of conversation, of saying, hello, how are you? Fine, thank you. That cut dialogue. That's one way to think about it. Another way to think about it is these sentences are so similar. It's like you are looking at the same bird flying in different angle, right? It's the same bird, da 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 da, but then maybe it is kind of flying with the head up, da 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 da, and then maybe it is kind of flying sideways, da 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 da. All right, so it's kind of, you can imagine it is a variation of the same thing. Looking at changing in different format. So recognizably one identity, other than there are different aspects and a different motion or different variation. So here we made the change from flash sound to nail sound. Watch, so we start with the flash sound touching the 7th string. Keep it that way. Right, the last one, we use the nail to press the 7th string. Right, and because now next, the variation at harmony. In the third section, it is. And in the fourth section, we added the lower octave harmony. All right, the previous 半轮, 2 sound, half 轮, turn into 轮, it's a full 轮, 3 sound, right? So the previous one is. And now the fourth section we do, right? So we made a variation, right? Basically adding more note makes the sound stronger and the contrast more powerful and more musical note and also more detail. Okay, so here we added Guqin. So 2 sound instead of 1. In the third section, the first time of this theme, it is. And this time, the fourth section, we did this. Right, 2 sound. The rest of them are pretty much the same. Psychological. Back to the scenery. Right. So this is the fourth section, the first variation. Now the fifth section, the second variation, also start with the same calling motif, but here it added more detail as well. It starts like this. Right? Second time. Third time, my own addition. Fourth time, nail instead of flash. So it's shorter, it's like a conclusion. Right? So next, same as the fourth section, using harmonies, but this time we use more harmony. We add harmony to more notes even than the fourth section. Alright, so here, just before the fanghe, we added 3 notes. We use lun instead of goatee, right? Right? So the first time is just, the second time in the fourth section it was, and then this time, fifth section. So basically the variation each time is more complicated, more complicated and more detailed, more magnificent, and the contrast is stronger. The louder sound louder, and softer sound softer, so you create greater contrast in each later time. So this time, now here, it starts to change. The fifth time, now we are going to transit to the next section and also the next mode, next emotional character. So this long note, this one, should let it last. Don't be too hasty to get into the next note, right? Because this is a transition from the very melodic, smooth, melodic, and relatively fast melody to slow and gradually getting back to the free speed. So this is the transition. Now here, the transition was not only made from the rhythmic, faster and melodic sound to slower and more kind of free speed, but also making a transition from the scenery depiction of the birds flying to the human psychology, to the admiring home missing and melancholic feeling. So starting from here. Right, so here it gets to the low sound, going to the very low reach of the 1, 2, 3 string. So the sound getting very low. So here it has some kind of psychological characterization depicting human feeling, low-pitched melody, and interacted with the scene. Right. So here, this part is more like internal reflection on life, on nature, on the universe, and on the fleeting existence of human, and then the everlasting landscape and nature, right? So. And here, it's like interacting between nature and human feeling. So here we have the very characteristic fingering called a tan, right? You hold your 3 finger and then strike out, creating a very loud sound. Okay. So this part, the title of the piece is While the Geese Descending on the Beach. This is Descending on the Beach. So that sound, you 多拉 la, and then 扶 means, you know, push down and mute the string. Mute the string. So every version has this part. That is a 落雁. That is a descending. That is the bird landing. Right. So it shouldn't be too strong. If you play like the bird is dead. It's like the bird just fall down and strike on the stone and dead. So it shouldn't be like that. It is life thing. It is the bird is alive. It's flying and landing, pop, 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 and then land on the sand. So it shouldn't be too loud. The previous part that could be loud, but the last one shouldn't be too loud. It's the bird landing on the sand, not the bird, you know, falling down and you know, 摔死了. Not like that. All right. So it should be. You should imagine it is the bird alive, flying down, and land on the beach. Okay, so now here it starts the 6th section, number 6 section. Number 6 section Now the bird has landed. If section 3, 4, 5 is depicting the bird flying in the air, the sixth section is depicting the bird on the beach, on the land, right? On beach, the geese, the wild geese on beach, versus the previous three sections, the wild geese flying in the sky. So here, the images are like the geese are flapping, running, crying, clapping their wings, etc. Right? So start from here. Landed, and now sixth section, start with a 推出. Right, depicting bird action on the beach, not in the sky anymore. So here it's like the birds doing something faster and faster, right? The geese, maybe they are walking, maybe they are, it's the same thing, same kind of geese or whatever it is, doing something repetitively, whether it's running or walking, and doing it faster and faster, right? That's what this is about, right? Slower. Faster. Fastest. Next. So this is, to me, this is flapping. This is the wild geese flapping their wings. That's like that kind of bird's wings flapping. So the Meian school, Pingshaluoyan, has kind of more vivid depiction of these kind of bird flapping and crying. But in the琴学叢书version, everything is just more suggestive. It's more subtle. It's not that vivid, but it is more poetic. It is more abstract. Something that the literatis like more. But you can feel it's the bird flapping. And this is not the bird flapping in the air, right? Only when they are landed on the beach, landed on the ground, they can do this kind of flapping. When in the air, it's a different kind of wing movement. So it's very very accurate. The music is very specific, very accurate, very vivid, and make a lot of sense, right? Now from melodic to free speed, right? You can feel it's from those rhythmic melody to this very free speed now. What is this? This is bird crying, right? So this is the wild geese crying. So we have sections very specific about bird walking, running, bird flapping their wings, and bird crying, right? So here you need to vary the speed, also vary the dynamic, vary the sound. One part very loud, and then the next part is softer. So it's like some birds are really close, some geese are really close, and their cries are really loud, and some geese are more distanced, and their cry is softer, or it's kind of like calling and response, question and answering. You know, like the birds are also talking to each other, right? So here, loud, soft, loud, soft, change to the nail, right? So this is the end of the 6th section. Section 6 completed the transition from rhythmic melody to free speed. It depicts the wild geese on the beach, on the land, contrasting with the previous 3, 4, 5 section depicting the wild geese flying in the air. And then comes the coda, right? The coda is kind of reversed. The first section is all harmonics, and it is pretty much free speed. It's slowed down from slow to very, very slow. So there is quite a dramatic ritardo. And the scenery kind of went back to the vast, misty landscape again. And or you can imagine now the birds walk or start flying away, and or your camera is zoom out and not focus on the detail of the birds anymore, but go back to the landscape setting where all these drama had happened. Right? So the harmonic coda. All right, so if you find my video helpful, please thumb up, please subscribe, and feel free to make comments, and feel free to share. Thank you.